Hear why some former members question who's really being honest.
Sick. Secretive. Sick. I mean, I'm just broken. Like, I could just cry right now.
His type was small-framed brunette girls.
This is where I absolutely blame the truth for all of this.
These are the voices of former members of a religious sect known as the 2x2s, or the Church with No Name. These women described experiences of alleged sexual abuse by ministers or members when they were children.
How often would this happen? On a week-to-week basis, it would happen about 2 times a week or more.
Laura Lee Brown says unlike other religious institutions, the 2x2 leadership will live in the homes of their followers for periods of time, giving easy access to young children. In June, we spoke with a veteran minister based in Washington State who presided at one of the church meetings in San Martin. I've talked with numerous former members who say they have been sexually abused by ministers who were staying in their home at the time. Many of them say it went on for years. What's your response after hearing that?
Well, I never saw it.
Because he had his eyes closed.
The, quote, church leadership, I find that very difficult to believe. And in the multitude of years that I've been in it, it's never been a problem.
How do you know it hasn't been a problem?
It's never been a problem that I'm aware of.
Hush.
Obviously, it could have been, but I wasn't aware of it. I said, you're lying to me, man.
After watching our story, former member Bart Cook says he reported his own alleged assault and attempted rape by another minister to leaders within the ministry, but nothing was done.
He threw me on the bed, pinned me down, and started grinding into me. He had this rage in his face, and I had this sense, he's about ready to rape me. And I, as a farm boy, 19-year-old farm boy, I couldn't even fathom what was happening.
Cook says after he left the church, one of the leaders in the ministry met with him trying to convince him to come back. Cook refused and says instead he wrote a ministry leader a letter raising concerns about other alleged sexual abuse within the ministry. But he says he never got a response. Years later, he said he confronted that church minister about it at a conference.
In that letter, I told you about 2 rapists that were in the church. One of them's still in your fellowship. And he goes, I never got the letter, and I don't know who you are. I've never met you in my life. I said, you're lying to me, man.
In that letter, Cook listed concerns about 2 members, both brothers, Richard and Ronald Schober, convicted of child sex crimes. Court documents show Richard was convicted of inappropriately touching a minor in the 80s, and he says he served time in prison. Richard says he's been affiliated with the church ever since, up until 2 years ago. I spoke with him over the phone.
I have done my time. I have gone through a very extensive 8-year program. I've done 15 months in prison. I've done 15 years on sex offender registry.
Have you received any allegations of sexual abuse since that time?
Absolutely not.
Well, he says he hasn't received any allegations since his conviction. He admits there were more victims than that one child. Richard, it's been reported you have 70 victims.
Oh my.
Is that true?
There was a number, and there's probably too many to number. Many of those didn't even know. It's hard to explain. It is someone that wasn't even aware that I had touched them. I'm being real honest here.
Wow.
Wow, that's right.
Wow.
Cynthia Lyles, a private investigator working with the FBI, says families have been trying for years to warn church leadership about Richard. Over the course of her 2-year investigation, she says more than 8 of his alleged victims have come forward. She says the ministry was made aware of it, and one of the leaders even visited him in prison.
He was aware of his conviction. He was fighting with a family that was trying to get him removed from the congregation.
I'm not surprised that he can't count them. When we initially visited with him, he told us it was 1, and then at the end of the conversation, he told us hundreds. And my reaction is it's nauseating. It's completely nauseating.
Jen Ford is a former 2x2 member who tried to file a restraining order against Richard after she claims he was stalking her youngest children. She says Richard lives 12 miles away from her in Alaska.
The most disturbing thing to me in hindsight is that the minister knew all about Richard. That's so disturbing to me that somebody claiming to be a man of God would do something with such harmful potential. Not just my children, but any children, any child.
Richard claims he did nothing wrong and the restraining order was never granted.
Do I have regrets about what's happened? Yes. I have lived with it for 40 years now. This is like a shadow over me. Every time I see a child, I feel it again.
Oh my, I can't.
Richard denied the ministry tried to hide his prior conviction and put children at risk. But the 79-year-old did claim another member abused him when he was young.
I was 10 years old.
Oh, man.
It happened in the dorm at the church convention.
Are you still affiliated with the religious sect?
No comment.